Husker report card for Game 5. Defense gets an A+, offense B-, and special teams F, as in what the f***. Hi, I'm Aaron Muller, and this is episode 8 of the Cobsmacked Podcast. This is a Nebraska football podcast where we cover the Husker season and team news as it develops throughout the year. Every video episode will be uploaded to YouTube, and the audio versions can be found on Apple, Google, and Spotify. We're recapping the Michigan State game, happened in East Lansing, night game. We all know how it went. Everybody that watched it knows how the recap's going to go, but we have to cover it, so here we go. Overall, it was a mixed bag, as it usually is with Husker games lately. Adrian had an injury scare early on. He went out in the first quarter with what seemed like a head injury. Fortunately for us, he came back into the game, but then for the next 3 quarters, he proceeded to struggle to keep the Huskers in the game, despite his offensive line. Luckily, the Black Shirts came to play, and they did more than they were asked. They did incredibly. Unfortunately for both of them, the special teams and the offensive line let the team down again. Just getting into the stats right away, Nebraska had 255 passing yards to 187 rushing yards for a total of 442 total yards. Michigan State had 183 yards in the air, 71 on the ground, and total of 254. So that right there, 442 total yards versus 254 should already spell out something. The fact that we held the rushing game on Michigan State's side to 71 total yards the whole game, that should be saying something in itself. The defense, like I mentioned, they played spectacularly. We got 3 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, 1 interception, which is the first interception that Peyton Thorne has thrown this year. On their side, as you can expect with a bad offensive line, they got 7 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, and 1 interception as well. The 1 interception came at a very crucial moment in overtime, but we'll get into that. Special teams was, again, a mixed bag, but flipped from what it has been. It has been issues with kicking the field goals. Punts have been fine. Now it's the opposite week. So we got 2 for 2 on field goals. Connor Culp made both of his field goals, but we punted 7 times for an average of 32 yards per punt, and that's with both punters coming in and getting time. 32 is not going to cut it. They kicked 3 of 4 field goals, and they had 6 punts for an average of 58.8 yards. And I believe they had 2 touchbacks included in that. So their kicker was out of his mind. He was booting those things through the heavens. First downs. We had a ton of first downs this game. We had 26 first downs compared to their 12. Time of possession, we had 37 and a half minutes. They had 22 and a half minutes. Penalties, we had 6 for 40 yards. They had 4 for 44 yards. Stats aside, we'll get into the takeaways because this is where most of the meat's going to happen. So we'll start with the defense. I usually start with the offense, but the defense is the shining moment that the team had yesterday, the shining aspect that the team had. So they played outstandingly, like I mentioned. They held the best running back in the country. Everybody kept hearing that going into the game, which he is a good running back. I'm not going to take that away from him. But we held the best running back in the country, Walker III, to 38 yards in regulation. He ended with 61 total yards, but he got 23 of those in overtime on 1 run. So he was held to 38 yards in regulation. He averaged 164 yards per game before this. So that's a drastic decrease in yardage. He just wasn't as dynamic as he had been able to be in the last few games. I mentioned that in the preview that they hadn't gone up against a defense as hard-nosed as ours, and I thought that we were going to be a good challenge for him. I thought that the Black Shirts could stick up to the offensive line, even though that they were big dudes and they were veteran dudes. I just felt like we were gonna get penetration, and we did. He did not have an easy night at all. Neither did Peyton Thorne. He got 5 sacks. He had 5 sacks in the last 3 games combined, and the Black Shirts earned 3 of them. So we forced his first interception of the season as well. That came in the first quarter. I think that was our first opening drive. He kind of tossed it up. I think he got pressured, so he kind of got rid of it sooner than he would have liked to. Didn't step into it and threw it right in the middle, and the safety intercepted it. Reimers and Henrich, they both had a total of 20 tackles each. 20. Well, not each. They had 20 tackles combined. Reimers had 11. Henrich had 9. They combined for 1 sack, and they had 2 tackles for loss as well. Garrett Nelson. So Reimers and Nelson are quickly growing to be my favorite players on the team. So those are the guys I kind of watch a lot. Reimers because he's just everywhere all the time, and Garrett Nelson because he's evolving into a good pass rusher, and we've been missing that a lot with the Huskers. We haven't had really a notable pass rusher since I don't even know. I can't even think of his name. It's been a while. So he had a great night. Garrett Nelson had a good night for 6 tackles, 1 sack, and 2 tackles for loss himself. We shut out Michigan State's offense in the first, third, and fourth quarters. They did score in the fourth quarter, but that was on a specials team thing. We'll get into it. But otherwise, we shut them out for 3 quarters of the game. The second half was specifically the second half was special. We had held them to 0 first downs. They did not get a single first down in the second half, 14 total yards, and 3 straight 3-and-outs. They got 3 possessions and 3 3-and-outs every time. Despite all that, we still lost the game. That's kind of what blows everybody's mind. You look at a stat like they didn't get a single first down. They got 14 total yards, and they went 3-and-out all second half. And they still won the game somehow. How? We'll get into it. So on the offensive side, again, we had offensive line discipline issues for the second week in a row. We had back-to-back false starts on the second drive of the game. Sichterman and Juergens both got false starts, which I was ranting about this on the couch. This is the first game I got to watch beginning to end live. I listened to it while I'm at work, but this is the first one I got to sit down and watch the beginning to end thing. They called Juergens for the false start, and I immediately thought, like, he's the one snapping the ball. How does he move before he snaps it? Like, that doesn't register in my brain. Like, he, of all people, should know when the play is going to start. So how did he move first? How did he do that? Don't know how it happened, but it happened. Later on, Brant Banks and Bryce Benhart both had a false start on the touchdown drive. So we ended up overcoming the penalties on that drive and getting the touchdown in the second quarter, but they still happened. That's 4 false starts in the first half. Luckily, we didn't have any penalties in the second half. We cleaned it up, and they seemed to actually play better as well. The first half, for the most part, in the second half, they played better. First half, it was Adrian couldn't get protection in the pocket. The running game was going nowhere. And then on top of that, they were getting penalties. The offensive line has been atrocious. And I have a lot more concerns, I think, seeing it 2 weeks in a row than I did initially, which was already a ton of concern. But it's just a growing concern that I don't understand how these things haven't been dealt with already. And I know that the coaching staff is doing as much as they can. They can put as much focus as they want on it. And the players have said the same thing, that I think Matt Sichterman specifically last week, he said that the coaches can tell us all they want, but until we start keeping ourselves accountable and doing it in game, it doesn't mean anything. So the players need to buckle down and figure out what it is that's causing them to just throw discipline out the window and mess up. I know they're not doing it intentionally, but it's happening regardless. So they need to focus on correcting those mistakes because they're letting the team down. They mentioned that at the end of the game too. We'll get into it a little bit, but the post-game thing, Scott said that he's tired of it, and the players that are going out there and giving everything are tired of it as well. So maybe those players are going to start, kicking ass in the locker room and telling the guys that are screwing it up for everybody else that they need to get shit in order, because this is unacceptable at this point. Jumping over to some positives, Martinez had a few mistakes, obviously. In a game like this where we're going to lose, there has to be little mistakes that happen here and there. But he's getting a lot of flack, specifically on social media. He had a fumble that was recovered by Michigan State. He had a few high passes, which he's chronically known for. And he did have the late interception in overtime that cost us the game. But I don't know how much of those mistakes I'm going to put on Martinez, and again, how many of those I'm going to put on the offensive line not giving him protection. He didn't see the guy coming from the backside when the fumble happened. I'm not going to put that on him. He did hold it a little longer than he probably should have, but he was the reason we were in the game. He has to make things happen. Otherwise, I think he feels an immense amount of pressure to make things happen to keep the team in the game. He held onto the ball a little long. He should have thrown it away at that point, at the point where he got tackled and fumbled it. But he was rolling out to the left to try to make something happen. He wouldn't have had to roll out to the left if the pocket was sustainable. It was not hardly at all the whole night. It was not sustainable. So that the high passes probably also come from that. He's getting rid of the ball sooner than he has to. He can't step into it because the pocket's collapsing. He can't trust the pocket to hold while he goes through the motion of throwing. And his late interception, I don't know. To me, it kind of looked like Toure didn't cut correctly. He didn't cut in front of the defender like you're supposed to do on a slant route. I don't know. Adrian kind of threw it a little early too, though. But again, he might not have had time to hold on to it any longer. He had to get rid of it. It's a quick slant. He needs to throw it to that guy. I think it was a bad route by Toure. It was a mixture of things, but we wouldn't have even been in overtime. This is how the whole night went last night, and I'm sure for most of the Husker fans out there, it's just one thing ties into another, ties into another, ties into another, but it almost all begins with offensive line or special teams. Those are the two areas of weakness, supreme weakness that you can point to on the team right now. And those two have been weaknesses since Frost has got here. I don't know. I'm not going to put that on Frost specifically. People want to throw all of these mistakes and blunders on Scott Frost and the staff. I think we'll get into it a little bit later, but I think that there's points to take. Some blame can go to Frost, sure, but I think that there's more reasonable areas to point to on how to fix these things. Like I mentioned, he did come back, and he did the best Spider-Man impression. Okay, so I wrote this down. That point in the movie where Tobey Maguire in the Spider-Man movie, he's stopping the train by shooting webs off to the side, and you see him like straining his face and stuff. For some reason, I thought of Adrian Martinez coming into the game and trying to hold all of the mistakes of his offensive line and all of the pressure to get the offense moving. He is single-handedly holding this train together. He is keeping this thing from going off the rails. And he did his best effort to hold the offense together. Despite the offensive penalties in the first half and the leaks and the amount of times he had to roll out, I think he was actually safer out of the pocket than he was in it, which is incredibly sad. But he makes the team run better than I think it actually is. I think the offensive line is so bad that I don't think the offense can be called good because of the offensive line. I know from the outside that sounds like I'm ragging on the offensive line all the time, but it's consistent. It's not like they've made one mistake, so then I'm gonna nail them, into the ground for that. It's been a consistent, slow thing. Like the edges were getting blown apart every play, it seemed like, especially the sack that ended the game, the sack that took him down, and we kind of just ran the clock out from there, which is another point of emphasis I'm going to get to. But that left tackle just got completely sideswiped. Like no stop at all. He had no blocking ability there at all, and that happened over and over and over again. Adrian got sacked for 7 times, but because it could have easily been double that. There was multiple points where Adrian could have got hit behind the line. He did get hit behind the line, but he somehow scored it out like he always does. Eventually, he's not going to be able to do that, or he's going to get injured for the game, and we're going to have somebody come in that doesn't have that ability. So these things need to be addressed. They've shown the ability to push in the second half. Like I mentioned, they played a lot better as far as like a running game goes, run blocks and things like that. But again, they weren't getting as much push as you would like to see. Adrian came in and he scored the only 2 touchdowns we had. They were both on the ground. You would have liked to see something through the air because passing was pretty open in this game. And there was plenty of potential for him to get some guys open and pass them open. Travis Vokalek specifically in the third and fourth quarter, he had a few times where he was running across the middle of the field wide open. And I don't know if Adrian didn't see him or he was too busy running for his life and he just didn't have a chance to get it out to him. And something else I'd like to mention. So Chaz in SoCal, he is somebody I follow on Twitter. I like his breakdowns and stuff. As soon as Adrian made his first rushing touchdown of the night, it looked like a busted handoff to me. I immediately went to Twitter to see what that guy had to say about it because he would know the same thing. He thought the same thing, and it looked like he was supposed to hand it off to Morrison. I think it was who was in. Might have been Stepp. He handed it off to somebody, but it looked like the guy was supposed to take it, and Adrian kind of turned around like, oh shit, I still have the ball, and he just squirted up the middle for a touchdown. Like it looked busted, but it also looked way too smooth to be a mistake, but apparently it was a mistake. Smooth as butter is how it goes. Ramir Johnson came in. He had 19 carries for 71 yards. He had 19 carries, which was the same as that Kenneth Walker, the third, but he had more rushing yards, which he was running hard. He did not go down. Johnson came in, and on top of that, when he comes in, he seems to do a very good job of pass blocking. I like him more and more as he plays. He's showing that he's in there to fight, and I like that. We need more of that from the running backs. In the second half alone, the offense held the ball for 22 minutes, and 224 of our total yards came in the second half. So out of 442, 224 that came in the second half. It was a tale of two taps. We had a bunch of mistakes in the first half. We weren't moving the ball effectively on the ground, and yet, out of all of those yards and the 22 minutes of possession out of the 30 in the second half, we only got 10 points out of it. So it's a tale of two halves, but to a point where we still weren't finishing drives. We still weren't able to get it into the end zone. And I'm not sure. I know that was one of the keys going into the preview of the game, was that we needed to finish drives, and we just weren't able to do it. Now we get into special teams. This is the part I wasn't looking forward to, but got to do it. So Culp was actually good today. He did a good job. I'm so happy for him. He came in and he went 2 for 2. He made both field goals. He came in. They were chip shot field goals, but still, he was able to make that 50-yarder against Oklahoma, and then he came in and he missed the chip shots. These were both from 28 yards, from what I could tell. Both 28 yards, and he made both of the PATs that he was supposed to make. And he looked good doing it. It wasn't close. They weren't bouncing off the uprights or anything like that. But he seemed confident coming out of those, which is what I was hoping. I was hoping he would get 2 field goals in the game, and that we would leave the game winning, of course, but that we would go into the rest of the season with confidence in our kicker, and that he would have confidence in himself, because it's a big deal for the kicker to have confidence that he can make a kick. Flipping over to the punting side of it, this is where the shit hits the fan, essentially. So Pritztup and Cerny came in, and they combined for a total of 7 punts. Is that what I said? 7 punts for 32.4 average yards. Included in that, they had 1 go for 26 yards, 1 go for 24 yards, and 1 go for 7. 7 yards. I jumped up off the couch, and my wife doesn't care about football. She'll sit there and watch it as long as I ramble, but she doesn't really care. I stood 7 yards from her, and I said, "This is how far our punter just kicked it." I said, "You could kick something that far." It blew my mind. Today, I took the kids out, and we practiced football. We practiced playing catch. We practiced running routes. And the ones in soccer, he likes to kick the football, so I had him kick it. He was kicking it more than 7 yards. I understand that he shanked it off of his foot, but you can't shank it off your foot when that's your job. That's the only job you have in the game of football, is to punt the ball. I think he was afraid of getting hit on the left side, and he kind of turned over and shanked it off the left side of his foot. Not acceptable. You have to stand in there, make the kick, because otherwise you get a 7-yard punt. That, the whole night, the punting team put us in bad field positions, and then on the other side of that, their punter was just drilling it. We did not have great field position all night because of this. The final punt at the end of the game. So we had just scored a touchdown. This is how it went. We scored a touchdown later in the game. So I think there was 3 minutes left, 3.5 minutes left. We were up by 7, feeling good about it. The guy nailed it. He caught it good. And I literally said, "Good, he finally got one." It went 44 yards, but then it was returned 62 yards by Reed for a touchdown, because he kicked it to the wrong side of the field. It was a right side coverage, and he kicked it to the left side. They did have 2 return men back there, but our coverage was to the right side of the field, and he just didn't kick it correctly. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's easy for me to sit here and be angry at a punter for not doing his job. I've never punted a collegiate game in my life. I've never kicked a field goal, never done any of that. But when that is your sole job on the team, you have to feel like you're letting the team down, right? And I'm sure they do. I'm sure they feel like they're letting the team down. But at some point, you have to get better. And last week, the punting was fine. But this week, you had over and over and over again between two different guys. It wasn't like one guy was having a bad night, so you pull him out, bring in a second guy, and he does fine. They both were having terrible night. That touchdown just killed everybody. Like you had what's the total here? So at the time that he punted it, we had an 89.5% chance to win the game at the point that Cerny kicked it, that punt off. Once he punted it and Reed took it back, I felt like, here we go. Like, how did this happen? I just couldn't believe it. I went from being so full of energy and like looking forward to this recap, and we need this win so bad. I was telling my wife that on the couch. I was like, we need this win as a fan base. And because we deserved the win. Like, the Black Shirts played their asses off. Adrian played his ass off. A lot of the players played their ass off. But we need the win. We just need to punt the ball. The defense has been playing great. We can, keep them from scoring. Even if they kick a field goal, we'll just keep them down, and then we'll get the ball back and we'll be able to win the game. That's not at all how it went. And that's, I wouldn't even say surprising. I would say shocking to me that it always seems to play out the worst way possible. I want to be positive, and I still am for the team, but like after the fact, when you're looking back on it, like you almost can't believe, like, worst case scenario seems to be the one that plays out every time. Like, what are the odds of that? Every time it goes bad. I just don't. I'm kind of at a loss for words. It's a heartbreaker for sure. One of the biggest moments of the game for me, though, was even after that touchdown, we got the ball back. I think we had to punt it back to them, and then they ended up having to punt it back to us. We had 47 seconds left when we started the drive on the 20. We got up to the 32-yard line, and we had 19 seconds left. Adrian had just taken a sack. We had 19 seconds left with 2 timeouts. We could have called a timeout there, stopped the clock, maybe taken 2 shots down the field to try to get closer to field goal range, and then given Culp a chance to kick a long field goal. Even if it was a 60-yard field goal, you should give him the chance to kick it to win the game for you. Can you imagine if you would have just crossed midfield, 20 more yards, maybe 30 more yards. So the tight ends had been open all night on them short routes. Get a couple tight end throws to the outside, get them out of bounds, have a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds left, kick a 55-yard field goal, which he's made the 53 or 52 is his long for the season. But just give him a chance. If he misses, he misses. It's a long field goal. He doesn't lose any confidence from that. But if he makes that, can you imagine the confidence and the momentum that brings the team? But we didn't even try. That's the biggest moment of the game for me, was that we didn't even try. We didn't call a single timeout. We just let the clock run out and we slid into overtime. I couldn't believe that. Like I couldn't believe that Frost talks about fighting so much, talks about fighting for a win so much, that he didn't even try to go down the field. I understand you don't want to throw a pick or you don't want to make a mistake in 19 seconds. That's still enough time for them on the 32-yard line to kick a field goal and beat you like that. But I still feel like we should have taken shots down the field, even if it was a Hail Mary. Throw a Hail Mary, let them intercept it on their 10. They're not going to get down the field in 5 seconds. I mean, I just say that, but it could happen to Huskers because that's how it always plays out. What does this win? What does this loss? Bad. What does this loss mean for us? It's another heartbreaker for the team. It literally felt like a gut punch. You could see it on the players and the coaches after the game. They were trying to be optimistic, like I am. I'm trying to be optimistic, but you can't help but take the sum of the some of the storm that just happens. Take the pile of crap that you just rolled around in. You played your ass off and you somehow still found your face in the mud. You have to take all that and deal with it. Like, you can't just say, like, I'm fine. You're not fine. You played as hard as you could and you somehow still walk away with a loss. You earned the win. As a black shirt, all of those black shirts, all the defense earned that win. They did the best that they possibly could have done. But you could see it on the players and the coaches after the game. They're tired of it. They're sick of it. The defense was still trying to, not blame the offense and special teams. Garrett Nelson was sitting there, didn't want to look at the camera. I mean, just and Jojo Doman too. He's sitting there like, we can do better. We're gonna win. We got a lot of season left. But you could tell just like it took it out of them. They played their hearts out and they didn't get anything in return for it. Like I said, I personally went from like a fan high of like standing up, jumping, clapping, wooting and hollering, and to I'm ready for bed. Like I don't even want to watch the post game. I don't want to watch any reactions. I don't want any of that. But I was ready for bed. I went from feeling like I was on energy drinks to I need to go to sleep. I haven't slept in 4 days. Like that type of feeling. I wanted to be around other Husker fans. As I mentioned, nobody really in the house watches the games with me. But I wanted to be around other Husker fans to kind of like, misery loves its company, that type of thing, just so I didn't feel alone in the loss. But I go to Twitter and it's super toxic. There's the Firebirds out there. They're fire Scott Frost. All these kids suck. Why are they on the team? That's not at all helpful and that's not at all accurate. We didn't get blown out by 60 points. We didn't get blown out by 40 points. We didn't go up to a running back who in the season has done particularly well and let him run 300 yards on us. Like that's not how the team has been playing. We've been playing better and competitively. We just can't seem to hit the one play that's going to cause us to win a game. Twitter is just a dumpster fire when it comes to that type of thing. I do want to shout out, like I mentioned, Chaz in SoCal. I listen to him a lot. He does a lot of breakdowns and stuff after the game. I look to him. I look to Jack Mitchell on Twitter, Meg at Hot Mess Husker, Johnny at Go Big Red Homer. There's many others, but those are the ones that I seen last night and that I kind of see consistently remaining positive about the team. Whether they use that through humor, like jokes about the fact that we just lost, but like you have to put a positive twist on it. Among the so many bad takes and the emotionally charged rants that I seen on Twitter last night, those four specifically, I took some positivity from, I took some laughs from, and then I got off. I didn't stay on Twitter more than probably 10 minutes, but I look to these people. I try to bring as many positive sources as I can for the Huskers because I do feel like as much hate as Scott's getting right now, I do feel like he's the right guy. I do, however, feel like Greg Austin might be on the hot seat. I like him as a coach. I like listening to him talk and things, but if the offensive line is consistently going to not get over this hump where they're making the mistakes and they're not able to get the push with their size, they have the size and the strength to do it. There's something there in the technique, especially on those ends. I just don't know how you get beat consistently like that when you're working on technique and things. But Greg Austin, I can honestly see, like, if he can't produce some results by the end of the year, I can see Scott having to let him go, because at this point it's going to be, I know Frost likes to remain loyal to his crew, but at this point it's going to be between Austin and Scott. If Scott can't let Austin go, it might be Frost's job on the hot seat than himself. So I like Greg Austin. I hope that he can pull it off. I hope that he can get these guys in check and that he can pull the techniques out that he's shown them and bring those to fruition in the game. I would love to see this staff succeed and succeed big. But this is the second opportunity now in 2 weeks that we've gotten to upset a top 20 team, and it's mistakes that have cost us. Looking forward, currently we're sitting at 2-3. The goal for this year was to get to a bowl game. In my eyes, the goal was to just get to a bowl game. But we have Northwestern, Minnesota, and Purdue left on the schedule. Those are all winnable games in my eyes. Northwestern seems to be the worst team in the Big Ten right now. Purdue's not very far ahead of them. Minnesota seems to be struggling as well. They just lost to Wake Forest. I don't remember who they just lost to, but they lost to a smaller school. Those are all winnable games. If we can win all three of those winnable games, then we will get up to 5 wins, which means we just need to knock off Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin, or Iowa. That'll get us to 6. That'll get us to bowl games. I feel like Ohio State has not been playing the best football. Their defense is suspect, which means we could exploit that on the offensive side. And our defense is solid enough to keep their offense in check. So Ohio State, I'm specifically looking forward to more so than usual, and Wisconsin as well. Iowa, I want to beat Iowa so bad, but that's not in the books for me this year. I don't feel the charge yet. I'll get closer as we get to the end of the season, and we get to the Iowa game. I get this rivalry hatred for Iowa. Not hatred's not the right word. I just want to beat them so bad. It's been a beatdown for the last however many seasons now. We'll get into this as we get to the different previews and stuff, but I feel like Ohio State specifically, Wisconsin just got beat by Notre Dame. They got rocked by Notre Dame because of Notre Dame's defense, so that gives us a positive chance to go into that game and win. And we do have, so Ohio State we have at home, Wisconsin we played there, Iowa we have at home, Michigan we have here. So we have Michigan, Ohio State, and Iowa all at home. As of right now, those are all top 15 teams. So we have the ranked opponents that we do have left on the schedule are going to be home games. So maybe that'll give us, a little extra oomph to get over the hill there. But we just need to beat one of those. If we can win those 3 winnable games, we just need to beat one of those. Going into the Ohio State, Wisconsin, Iowa end stretch to go, those are the last 3 games of the season. We could potentially be sitting at the 5 wins already. If we can get to that 3-game stretch with 5 wins, I don't see us losing 3 in a row like that, especially if we only need one more win to get to a bowl game. I feel like the guys are going to be playing that harder and harder and harder. They're not going to want to let the season go to waste. They're going to want to feel some sort of success come out of the season, some sort of respect earned, especially the defense. I feel like they've played way too hard to go out of the season without a bowl game. Everything's still very much in reach. I do truly believe that we just need to improve the offensive line. Not so much their size. The size is there, the ability is there, the potential is there. We just need to improve their discipline. Their discipline, both in not getting the penalties and staying in your position, and also the technique to be able to block for passes. They're just kind of throwing the fundamentals out the window, and they're just getting beat by lesser defensive linemen. We also need to make a focus on special teams. I think we're going to have to hire a coordinator at some point. We can't just let that be an afterthought. We have three of our losses this season. All 3 of our losses are by combined 18 points, and the special teams has cost us directly 22 points. We have 5 missed field goals, and that punt return for a touchdown is 7. Puts us at 22 direct points. We should be 5-0. We could be 5-0 if our special teams was more solid. I understand the field goal unit's not going to make all the field goals coming his way, and the punting unit can't make, glorious punts every time. But even if we would have just had an average special teams this year, we could potentially be 5-0. Going into the rest of the season, you'd only need 1 win to get to a bowl game. That would make you feel amazing going into the rest of the season with just one of those teams you need to get to a bowl game. That would be great for the Huskers, but that's not where we're at. So I feel like this was way more negative than I wanted it to be, but I still truly am positive for the rest of the season. I still truly feel like we can get to a bowl game. We have Northwestern at night, 6:30 next week. We'll get into the preview on Friday, or hopefully we'll get that out on Wednesday again. I've been trying to get those out Wednesday, but we'll get into the preview for Northwestern. It's another one I'll get to watch, so I'm excited about it. But that'll wrap up this week's recap. We will be back here on Wednesday for another pregame analysis. Whatever you think. If you think I was too negative, you think I was too positive, you think I should be just shitting on the team because they've proved nothing else, or if you think I'm doing fine with all of this stuff. I don't care how I'm perceived. I feel like I'm still positive. Anyway, whatever you feel, comment on Twitter, comment on the video below on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter at Cobsmacked Pod, or I do tend to stream, but I haven't been really doing that lately because I've been working so much on this. So until next time, go Big Red.